They found Esther's body at dawn, cold and stiff on the leather couch of the biggest mansion in town. 24 hours earlier, she had been the most celebrated girl in the entire village. Everyone wanted to be near her. Everyone wanted to touch her. Everyone wanted to be her. But now, she was dead. And the secret she carried. It was darker than anyone could ever imagine. Let me take you back to where it all started. Back to when Esther was nobody. Back to when she was invisible. Esther's story began in a small, leaking house at the edge of the village. The kind of house where the roof cried when it rained, and the walls whispered secrets of poverty to anyone who passed by. Every morning, Esther would wake up on a thin mat on the floor. Her younger brother slept beside her, and sometimes, in the middle of the night, rats would run across their legs. She had learned not to scream anymore. Screaming only woke up her parents, and they already had enough troubles. Her father was a struggling farmer. Her mother sold vegetables at the market. Together, they could barely afford to feed the family, let alone pay Esther's school fees. But they tried. God knows they tried. At school, Esther existed in the shadows. She wore the same faded uniform every day, the one with a patch on the shoulder that her mother had sewn 3 times already. Her shoes had holes in them, and during the rainy season, her socks would be soaked by the time she reached the classroom. The rich students. They sat at the front of the class. They laughed loudly. They wore fresh uniforms that smelled like expensive detergent. Their shoes shined like mirrors. And they had phones, the latest ones, with cameras that could capture every moment of their perfect lives. Esther wanted so badly to sit with them. To be part of their group. To be seen. But every time she tried to join their conversations, they would look at her like she was dirt on their shoes. One of the girls, Gloria, would say with a disgusted look, "You're blocking the air." The others would laugh. Loud, mocking laughter that would echo in Esther's head for hours. And then there was Kenneth. Tall, handsome Kenneth with the smooth skin and the bright smile. Esther had liked him since JSS2. She would watch him play football during break time, watch him laugh with his friends, watch him walk past her like she didn't exist. One day, she gathered all her courage and wrote him a letter. Her hands shook as she slipped it into his bag when no one was looking. The next day, Kenneth stood in front of the whole class and read the letter out loud. "Dear Kenneth," he began, imitating a high-pitched voice. "I have been watching you for a long time, and I think you are the most handsome boy in school." The class exploded with laughter. Esther wanted the ground to open and swallow her whole. "Esther, you want to toast me?" Kenneth said, grinning. "Please, go and face your level. You know we aren't on the same level." More laughter. Louder this time. Gloria stood up and added fuel to the fire. "Kenneth, leave this poor rat alone. Everyone knows you're dating Jane. The girl with class. Not this beggar." Esther's eyes burned with tears, but she refused to cry. Not in front of them. Never in front of them. But the damage was done. The humiliation had soaked into her bones. The bullying didn't stop at school. It followed her everywhere. At the market, where her mother sold vegetables, the other traders would gossip loud enough for Esther to hear. "See the girl. Her mother is struggling to sell even 3 tomatoes. I heard they can't even pay for their house rent. Poverty is a disease. Oh. You see how it's following that family like shadow." At church, it was worse. The pastor's wife would organize youth programs, and Esther would volunteer eagerly, hoping to be noticed, hoping to be appreciated. But during the programs, she would be given the worst tasks. Sweeping the compound while the rich girl stood at the front, singing with the microphone. "Esther, come and pack these chairs," they would order her around like she was their housemaid. One Sunday, after service, Esther stood near the church gate, watching Kenneth and Jane walk hand in hand to a car. Jane's father was a big businessman in town. She wore jewelry that sparkled in the sun. Her laughter sounded like music. Esther looked down at her own worn slippers and felt something break inside her chest. That night, she sat outside her house, staring at the stars. Her father was snoring inside. Her mother was already asleep, exhausted from the day's work. The village was quiet except for the sound of crickets and distant dogs barking. Esther whispered to herself, "God, if you can hear me. I need a miracle. I'm tired of being nobody. I'm tired of being invisible. I want to be somebody. I want them to see me. I want them to respect me. I don't care what it costs." She didn't know it yet, but something in the darkness was listening. 3 days later, Esther overheard a conversation at the market. 2 old women were talking in low voices, but Esther's ears caught every word. "That girl from our neighboring village, you know, the one that became rich overnight. The one that turned to big madam all of a sudden. Yes, oh. I heard that she did juju. She met one spirit inside the forest. Please, me, I don't want to hear this kind of thing, oh. It's very dangerous." But Esther had already heard enough. Her heart was racing. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the conversation. About the possibility. About the chance to change everything. Finally, she made her decision. On a Friday night, when the full moon hung heavy in the sky like a ripe fruit, Esther waited until her family was fast asleep. Then, quietly, she slipped out of the house. She walked barefoot through the village, past the closed shops, past the silent houses, into the thick bushes at the edge of town. The air was cold. The trees whispered warnings. But Esther pushed forward. She had heard stories from the older people in the village. Stories about rituals. Stories about spirits that wandered in the night, searching for desperate souls to make deals with. She reached a small clearing and stopped. The moonlight poured down like silver water. Esther knelt on the ground. Her hands were shaking. She picked up a sharp stone and, before she could change her mind, she pressed it against her lap and dragged it across her skin. Blood dripped onto the earth. "I'm calling you," she whispered into the darkness. "Any spirit that is hearing me. I need your help. I need power. I need people to see me. I need respect." At first, nothing happened. Just the wind. Just the crickets. Then, the temperature dropped. Esther's breath became visible in the air. The trees stopped moving. Even the crickets went silent. And then, she heard it. A voice. Low and ancient. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Why have you called me, child?" Esther's heart nearly stopped. But she forced herself to speak. I want to change my life. I want fame. I want respect. I want people to bow down to me." The voice laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Fame and respect. These things are easy to give. But every gift has a price. "I'll pay it," Esther said quickly. "Whatever it is, I'll pay it." The darkness seemed to shift, and Esther felt something standing in front of her. She couldn't see it clearly, but she could feel its presence, cold, ancient, powerful. "I will make you famous," the voice said. "I will make you the most recognized person in any place you enter. People will respect you. They will fear you. They will worship you. You will get anything your heart desires." Esther's eyes widened. Yes. Yes, I want that. But in exchange, the voice continued, "You must never sleep at night. Not even for 1 minute. If you sleep after the sun sets and before it rises, you will die. Your soul will belong to me." Esther hesitated. Never sleep at night. That sounded difficult. But then she thought about Kenneth's laughter. about Gloria's mocking face. About the way people looked through her like she was glass. I accept, she said. The voice laughed again. Then it is done. A sharp pain shot through Esther's body. She gasped and fell forward, her hands hitting the dirt. Energy, hot and electric, flowed through her veins. Her skin tingled. Her eyes burned. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. When Esther looked up, the presence was gone. The forest was normal again. The crickets resumed their song. But Esther knew something had changed. She could feel it in her bones. The next morning, Esther woke up feeling different. Stronger. More alive. She got ready for school and stepped outside. Her mother was sweeping the compound and looked up at her daughter. For a moment, her mother just stared. Esther, you look different. Esther smiled. Different how, Mama? I don't know. You look like somebody important. Esther laughed it off and headed to school. But the moment she stepped through the school gate, everything changed. Students who normally ignored her suddenly stopped and stared. She walked past a group of boys, and they all turned to watch her, their mouths slightly open. Who is that? One of them whispered. That's Esther, another replied. Esther. The same Esther. No way. She is different now. Girls who used to mock her now smiled nervously as she passed. Even the teachers seemed to look at her with new eyes. When Esther entered her classroom, the whole place went silent. Gloria, the girl who had bullied her for years, stood up slowly. Esther, hi. You look amazing. Esther said nothing. She just walked to her seat. And then something strange happened. Gloria followed her. Esther, please, can I sit next to you? I've been wanting to apologize for how I treated you before. I was so stupid. Can we be friends? Esther looked at Gloria's desperate face and smiled. Sure. Why not? From that day forward, everything changed. Within a week, Esther became the most popular girl in school. Students fought to sit next to her. Boys begged for her attention. Even Kenneth, handsome, proud Kenneth, approached her one day with flowers. Esther, I'm sorry for what I did before, he said, his voice shaking. I was foolish. Can you give me a chance? Esther looked at him the same way he had looked at her before. Like he was dead. Kenneth, she said sweetly, please, go and face your level. We are not on the same level again. The students nearby gasped. Some laughed. Kenneth's face turned red, and he walked away in shame. Esther's power wasn't just at school. Everywhere she went, people respected her. At the market, traders would give her free things. At church, the pastor's wife would ask for her opinion on programs. Even her family noticed the change. Her father got a sudden promotion at his workplace. Her mother's vegetable business started booming. Everything was perfect. Except for one thing. The nights. Every night, Esther fought sleep like it was her worst enemy. While her family slept peacefully, she would pace around the small compound, her eyes wide open, her body screaming for rest. Sometimes, she would stand outside and stare at the moon, reminding herself of the deal she had made. If I sleep at night, I'll die. If I sleep at night, I'll die. She repeated it like a prayer. The hardest part was pretending everything was normal. When her mother asked why she looked tired, Esther would lie and say she was fine. One night, her mother woke up around 2 a.m. to urinate. She stepped outside and saw Esther standing in the middle of the compound, perfectly still, staring at nothing. Esther. What are you doing outside by this time? Esther jumped, startled. Mama. I couldn't sleep. I just came outside to get some fresh air. Her mother frowned. Fresh air. At this time. Esther, this is the third time this week I'm catching you outside at night. What is going on? Nothing, Mama. I'm just not feeling sleepy. That's all. Her mother wasn't convinced. Come inside. Let us sleep together. I will massage your head. You will sleep. No, Mama, I'm fine. But her mother grabbed her hand and dragged her inside. Esther's heart was pounding. She lay down on the mat next to her mother, her body tense. Her mother began to hum a lullaby. The same one she used to sing when Esther was a child. And slowly, dangerously, Esther began to feel drowsy. Her eyelids grew heavy. Her breathing slowed. Her muscles relaxed. No, she thought desperately. No, I can't. I can't sleep. But the pull was too strong. Her eyes began to close. At the last second, Esther's eyes snapped open. She jumped up like someone had electrocuted her and ran out of the house. Esther, her mother called after her. Esther, come back. But Esther was already gone, running into the darkness, her heart hammering in her chest. She ran to the back of the house and hid behind a tree, her hands shaking. I almost slept, she whispered to herself. I almost died. From that night on, Esther became more careful. She would sleep during the day, in class, during free periods, anywhere she could, so that at night, she would have enough strength to stay awake. She became known as the vigilant girl who watched over the village at night. Some people thought she was spiritual. Others thought she was just strange. But no one knew the truth. 2 months into her new life, Esther received the invitation she had always dreamed of. Gloria and her group of rich friends were throwing a party at Gloria's mansion. And they wanted Esther to be the queen of the party. You're the most popular girl now, Gloria said, smiling brightly. You have to come. You'll be the star. Everyone will celebrate you. Esther's heart soared. This was it. This was everything she had wanted. The party was on a Saturday night. Esther wore a beautiful dress that one of her new friends had given her. She looked stunning. When she arrived at Gloria's mansion, the place was already packed. Music blasted from huge speakers. Lights flashed in different colors. Tables were filled with food and drinks. And when Esther walked in, everyone cheered. Esther! 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 They lifted her up and carried her around like a queen. They gave her a crown made of flowers. They took pictures with her. They worshipped her. Esther felt like she was floating. This was what she had always wanted. To be loved. To be celebrated. To be somebody. The drinks kept coming. Wine. Champagne. Fruit juice mixed with something strong. Drink, Esther. Tonight is your night. And Esther drank. And drank. And drank. She was laughing, dancing, feeling more alive than she had ever felt. But then, slowly, the room began to spin. Her body felt heavy. Her eyelids drooped. I need to sit down, she mumbled. Her friends helped her to a couch. Rest more, Queen. You are tired. Esther sat down. Just for a moment, she told herself. Just to catch her breath. But the moment her body relaxed into the soft leather, sleep wrapped around her like a warm blanket. And before she could fight it, her eyes closed. When the sun rose the next morning, the party was over. Empty bottles and plates littered the floor. Most of the guests had gone home. But Esther was still on the couch. Still sleeping. Esther, wake up now, one of her friends said, shaking her shoulder. Party don't end. Time to go home. But Esther didn't move. Esther. The friend shook her harder. Esther. Still nothing. Panic began to set in. Gloria. Gloria, come here. Something is wrong with Esther. Gloria rushed over. She touched Esther's neck, checking for a pulse. Her face went pale. Call ambulance. Now. Within minutes, Esther was rushed to the hospital. The doctors worked frantically, but after 30 minutes, the head doctor came out with a grave expression. I'm sorry, he said quietly. She's gone. Gloria screamed. Other students began to cry. But none of them cried as hard as Esther's mother when she received the news. Esther's mother collapsed when the police told her. Her husband had to hold her up. My daughter. My Esther. What happened to my child? The police investigated everyone at the party. They tested for poison. They questioned every student. But there was no evidence of foul play. Madam, we are sorry, the police officer said. But there's nothing we can find. No sickness. No poison. She just died. She just died. Esther's mother screamed. My daughter doesn't just die. Something is wrong. Something is very wrong. But the police had no answers. They released the body and told the family to bury her. Esther's mother refused to accept it. Deep in her heart, she knew something spiritual was involved. She went to see a prophet in the next village. An old man with gray hair and eyes that seemed to see through time. When she entered his small room, the prophet looked at her and nodded slowly. Your daughter made a deal, he said, even before she could speak. A very dangerous deal. Esther's mother's hands flew to her mouth. What kind of deal? She sold her nights for fame. And now, the spirit has collected its price. Is there a way to save her? Please, Baba. Please. The prophet was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. There is one way. But it is not easy. You must take her body to the river. The big river at the edge of the forest. Place her there for 3 days and 3 nights. On each night, at exactly midnight, you must perform an incantation I will teach you. If you do this correctly, the spirit will release her soul, and she will return. I'll do it, Esther's mother said immediately. I'll do anything. That very night, with the help of her husband and a few trusted relatives, Esther's mother carried her daughter's body to the river. The place was dark and isolated. The sound of rushing water filled the air. They laid Esther's body on the riverbank and covered her with white cloth. At midnight, Esther's mother knelt beside her daughter and began the incantation the prophet had taught her. Words in a language she didn't understand. Words that seemed to vibrate in the air. The wind picked up. The trees bent. The river churned. But Esther didn't move. The second night, the same thing. Her mother's voice was hoarse from crying, but she continued the incantation. On the third night, something changed. As Esther's mother spoke the final words of the incantation, the air around them became freezing cold. The river stopped flowing. Everything went silent. And then, a voice, the same ancient voice Esther had heard in the forest, spoke from the darkness. Why do you disturb me? Esther's mother, trembling, shouted into the darkness. Release my daughter. She is just a child. She didn't know what she was doing. She made a deal. She accepted the terms. Please. Esther's mother was crying now. Please, she has learned her lesson. Give her back to me. Give her back. There was a long silence. Then, the voice spoke again. Very well. I will release her. But she will return to her old life. No fame. No power. No magic. She will be nobody again. And if she ever calls on me again, I will take her forever. I accept. I accept. Esther's mother cried. Suddenly, Esther's body gasped. Her chest rose. Her eyes flew open. Mama, she whispered weakly. Esther's mother grabbed her daughter and held her tight, sobbing. "You're back. You're back. Thank God, you're back." Esther returned to her normal life. The fame was gone. The power was gone. The respect was gone. At school, she was back to being invisible. The rich students ignored her again. Chinedu didn't look at her twice. But this time, Esther didn't care. She had learned something more valuable than fame. She had learned that shortcuts always come with a price. She had learned that true respect doesn't come from magic or deals with spirits, it comes from who you are inside. She focused on her studies. She helped her parents without complaint. She stopped trying to impress people who didn't matter. And slowly, quietly, Esther found something she had never had before. Peace. One day, years later, someone asked her, "Esther, do you ever regret the life you lost? The fame? The power?" Esther smiled softly and shook her head. "I don't regret losing it," she said. "I regret ever wanting it." Because she had learned the hardest lesson of all, that the price of fame can be your very soul. And no amount of respect, no amount of popularity, is worth losing yourself. The end. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more captivating folktales.